All right, welcome back, everybody. Another episode of the Niner Family Huddle Show, and we got some big news. Deebo Samuel is a Commander. We'll talk about it after this. What up, what up? All right. Deebo has been traded to the Washington Football Commandos, as I like to call them, for a fifth-round pick. Sad to see him go, but probably needed to be done. Jason, what was your kind of initial reaction when you saw the news?
I was happy, mixed emotions, but initial happy. I mean,
For your Niners, for yourself, for Deebo, for everyone, for the Commanders, who are you happy for?
Just because I think it's best for
For all
because I think
parties.
it's what's best for the Niners.
Yeah.
It's been drug out for too long at this point. It's been trade requests, drama, rumors, and I'm ready for the Deebo Samuel experiment to be over. I think a fifth round's decent, although the Commanders, they made the playoffs and didn't even get first rounded, so that's not a great fifth rounder, right? That's like a late fifth rounder.
Yeah, I mean they were in the NFC Championship, so it's definitely at the end of the fifth round.
Yeah. So that's a bummer. But I don't know how much draft capital they were going to get back. Clearly, other teams weren't ponying up much more, or else the Niners would have gone that route. So I'm happy. Just rip the Band-Aid off, get it over with. Let's get some fresh blood. Apparently, the Niners want to save some money, give that money to Brock Purdy or Myles Garrett or whoever it may be. But yeah, overall, I'm happy. We got something back. It's better than nothing. Niners are money in the fifth round, so let's go draft the next George Kittle.
I think you mentioned maybe giving that money to Brock or Miles. I think the answer there was Jed York. That was probably the answer you were looking for. I think Jed wants to put his money back in his own pocket. That's why they want to get younger and cheaper. What did you think, Steven?
You were asking who were you happy for? I thought you were going to say, were you happy for Jake Moody? He doesn't have to worry about like getting punched on the sidelines anymore.
His bully is out of the building.
Yeah. I knew it was coming and know that it's like best at this point. Like just, he's the second time in his career that he's been with the Niners that he's requested a trade from the Niners. It's kind of like, okay, it's time to go. But it still made me sad. Like just thinking about, like all the good times, I mean, Deebo was just such a force when he was at his peak and just so fun to root for, fun to watch. Like you felt like coming out, you had Deebo Samuel, you had a chance, you had a chance for something special on almost every play. And he was like not going to back down from anybody. He had the swagger, so there was just a lot to like about Deebo. But I could also see him being a guy that, like, if he's not on your team, you probably don't like him too much, especially with some of the stuff like that. He's just really blunt, which I think is kind of refreshing, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I was my immediate thought was about that, just like, oh man, it's really over. That's too bad. But all my sadness was for like 2021 Deebo, 2022 Deebo, not so much for 2024 Deebo. um, and so, yeah, I think that, it's probably a pretty good return, all things considered. I mean, I think there were times during the season that we were talking about it and we're like, they're going to be lucky to get anything. Like, nobody's going to want to give up anything for this guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it actually better for them that they did this trade versus just releasing him? I don't know what the implications are for the cap. I think it is better from what I've read, but do you guys know that with any certainty? Because I know, like, if you did the post June 1 release or whatever, like there was some savings with that too. And I don't know if there was actually more savings because they're still paying like a pretty big dead cap hit, aren't they? Even though the Commanders are going to take on his full salary, which I think is another big win in this, where they didn't have to like say we'll pay a portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that the Niners have a big hit, and I don't know if that hit would have been bigger, smaller, or the same with the release.
So I thought David Lombardi laid it out pretty nicely and succinctly. Um, Trading Deebo made his cap hit this season in 2025 go up. I don't remember what the original number was, but it's now 31 million on the cap, which is obviously a pretty big number. But his cap hit next year was going to be a relatively high number as well because they restructured his contract. And I think it might have been 17 or something million. And the Commanders picked up that. So he's completely off the books in that following 2026 season. But his cap hit this upcoming season is going to be pretty big.
But the Niners don't have to pay that full 31, right? Aren't the Commanders paying his salary for the season? They're just paying whatever the difference is.
The dead cap counts for the cap for the Niners. The money that Deebo was owed this season will be paid by the Commanders, but it's not very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, so it's good to get something back, I suppose, and it sounds like it's a net win, or I'm sure it is, or why else? Why would they have done it? But yeah, I mean, can you imagine going back to 2022 and telling somebody, "Hey, you can have Deebo for a 5th-round pick"?
No, not at all. That Tim Kawakami article where the Niners kind of expressed some regrets about signing Deebo, signing Aiyuk, and signing. I don't think they regret re-signing Nick, but I think they regret giving him as much as they did. I wonder what Deebo would have gotten then, and I wonder what Aiyuk would have gotten last year.
I wonder what Deebo would have gotten last year, just before the season. Like, do you think? I don't know that he would have got a first, but do you think he would have got a second or a third before the season?
I think so. You could have gotten a third. That probably would have been best case. That's just a guess. The Steelers might have been a little desperate because they were the ones sniffing around on Aiyuk and Deebo.
It is very interesting that the trades that didn't happen that almost did look like bad decisions now. I mean, Aiyuk, we'll see. The jury's still out there, but as of right now, I'm like, dang, I wish we kind of would have capitalized when we could have on Aiyuk. And I feel similarly now about Deebo, just seeing what's happened. And then you look back, I know we keep talking about it, but DeForest Buckner, that's like the one where it's like, gosh, I wish you would have just caved and gave him all that money and not traded him because that was a bad decision.
It feels like they're kind of caving and paying the wrong players. And then when they're like, we're going to be tough and trade, I'm like, no, that was the guy you probably should have kept on or held on to, actually.
Yeah.
I think the bad ones stand out more, though. I mean, even though he was, missing most of last year, and we'll see what happens. I'm still really happy that they traded for Christian McCaffrey. And
me too.
I'm still really happy that they traded for Trent Williams, and
even Emmanuel Sanders, I think, was a pretty good trade back in the day.
Whatever.
Well, I do think it was a good trade. They needed him, and he was a nice culture setter player, but they did give up like a 2nd-round pick for him.
Did they? Oh my God.
It was something like that, I think, and it was like half a season. Now, if they would have won the Super Bowl,
yeah,
easy trade. But
Jimmy would have hit him.
He just needed to catch one pass.
Hero.
One pass would have made the difference.
Oh, let's not do that right now. Yeah, I'll say when I saw the news, I thought it was a good deal for both teams because I think Deebo needs a reset. I think the Niners get to pass this whole thing off as like, hey, Deebo requested a trade and we honored his trade request. When in reality, they were like, we were 2 weeks away from cutting him. And now they got a pick that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten. And, Chasen mentioned they got the 5th-round pick. They didn't have a 5th-round pick in this draft. Remember they got in trouble because they had like an accounting error?
Yep.
And they got docked, a 5th-round pick for that. So they have recovered that 5th-round pick now, although it's not in quite as good of a position. But yeah, whatever. Hopefully we can go find the next Dre Greenlaw or George Kittle, like Jason said.
Oh yeah.
What are your guys' expectations for Deebo in Washington?
I don't know. I could see it going in a lot of different directions. I could see him getting hurt in training camp and not playing or something like that. I could see him having one last kind of gas of air in him and having a not an amazing season. I don't think it'll ever be like a 2021 season, but I
No.
could see him having like a good season, maybe like one more left in him, and then it's kind of downhill from there. I feel like that's kind of the most likely outcome, like in my opinion, that he's going to be motivated. He's going to go in there. He's going to have Jaden Daniel slinging it around, some creative play calling with Kingsbury. And I could see him having another good season, and I'll be happy for him. But sustained success, yeah, that's behind us at this point. And so I can see it going a few different ways, but I think most likely he has another solid season in him, and then it's just a decline until he's out of the league.
Go ahead, Steven. What do you think?
It's like there's like Jason said, there's not like I feel like, oh my gosh, it's absolutely going to be this. But if I had to bet money on the most likely outcome, I think he's going to be a disappointment for them, or at least for their fans. I think that they are expecting 2021 Deebo to show up,
Oh, for sure.
and I think that guy's gone forever. Now, he could prove us all wrong. I mean, like, the answer to the question is it's up to Deebo. What do we expect from him? It's the power is totally in his hands. If he and I do think he will be really motivated because he's going to want to go show like, hey, I was worth this, and oh, by the way, won't he pretty much be playing for another contract?
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be his last chance. So I think you're going to get the best version of Deebo that he can give you in terms of like being in shape and everything else. I just don't know if that version of Deebo is enough to be like the tour de force that he was. Um, but I'm not going to count him out because I still think like, things that I saw him do, like very few guys on the planet can do, right? Like he has this crazy ability. But yeah, if you're making me predict, I'm going to predict that he has like a middling season, and there's probably going to be moments of frustration that he expresses, and they're probably going to try to go out of their way to make him a focal point of the offense early on or in certain games. And he's going to end up having, a game where he's got two or three drops because he's always been plagued by that. Even when he was, at his peak, he would have confounding drops. He would make the hard catches and he would miss some of the easy ones, and so I just think that it's gonna be a disappointment if you are expecting him to come in and be like this big time impact player. And I just don't know if Deebo is willing at this point of his career with all of his accomplishments that he has and the resume that he has to be like the third option potentially in that offense. I could be wrong. He may show up super fit and super humble, and let's get to work. And if he does that, look out, everybody. I think he could still do something, but I just don't expect that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think he's got one good year in him. I think he's in a contract year. Obviously, he's going to be motivated to perform in front of new fans, new team, young, exciting quarterback. Um, I
Yeah.
think he's going to want to prove his worth to the Commanders, but I also kind of agree with you, Steven. Like, he can do all the right things, and there just might not be much juice left in that orange.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what the Washington Commanders can squeeze out of him, but I don't know how much is left. I do think there is some left, though. So I was just looking at his stats um, over his 49er career. The first thing that jumped out, so much that it's actually in bold, 18.2 yards per reception in 2021. Way higher than any of his other seasons. That's crazy.
It's because he had a couple really long ones that year that inflate that average. Like I
Yeah,
think I think he
yeah,
had like an 80 plus yard one and like
against the
a
Bears.
and like
Yeah.
a 70 something against the Lions or 60 something. So
Yeah, week one.
yeah, there was a few long touchdowns that season I remember that I think make that number look bigger than it is. Like if you took just like 3 or 4 out, I wonder what his average would be.
Yeah, well, what stands out to me about his career is zero. Why don't I actually just share the screen here? There's only 1,000 yard receiving year. Oops, I was
Mm-hmm.
gonna try and highlight him, but right here is his yards. We can highlight him by the top. So 2023 was his second best year, 892.
Mm.
Um,
Wow.
I could see him having like a 2023 type year where
Yeah.
he has 8 to 900 yards, 60 to 70 catches, and he had 7 touchdowns. If the Commanders got 7 touchdowns out of him, that would be sick. Niners got only 3 out of him last year.
It's funny how his odd years are his best years. And that's what he's going into, 2025.
Yeah, it's like he came into the league, had a great year, and then he got a little beat up, and then he had a good year, and then he got a little beat up, and then he had a good year. It's like he's got to take a year off. Christian McCaffrey's kind of followed that same mold, except he goes like 2 years on, 2 years off, which hopefully he can kick that habit because we need him to come back. But yeah, so to me, if Deebo had like 8 or 900 yards, 5, 6 touchdowns, and 250 rushing yards, I think it'd be well worth the trade for the Commanders, and I think that'd be a good year for him. But he's not touching 1,000 receiving yards again.
The difference
like
between last year and his other even years, sorry, just to cut you off there, but
you're good.
he was healthy all of last season. The other even years, he was dealing with injuries. I mean, maybe he had some undisclosed injuries last year that
Pneumonia.
we weren't
He
aware
did
of.
have the pneumonia thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, didn't he still play in like 14 games last year? I mean, I feel like he played quite a bit.
Yeah.
Anyways, what were you going to say, Chasen?
I was just gonna say, just like determining like if Deebo has success from here on, it just depends on like the expectations placed upon him. I mean, he's clearly not the number one receiver. Scary Terry is. They have some weapons. They have some talent. So if they're expecting like 2021 or even anything close to it, they're not gonna get it. But 800 total yards from scrimmage, like that, in my opinion, is still success. And if he can do that and maybe even do it more than once, like then I think the Commanders got some good value there out of a 5th rounder. And I honestly hope he does because, there was a time where Deebo was legit like maybe top 3 in my favorite Niners, and I wanted a Deebo jersey. And I'll never forget the 2021 season, the 2019 season. I remember in the playoffs, he had the end around against, was it the Seahawks that year? He had a sick end around, and he just brought so much explosion and excitement. And so like I'm forever grateful for the fun memories from Deebo, and I do wish him success, and I'm also at the same time glad that it's over.
Yeah, I want to see him do well too, and I'm also glad he went to a franchise that I don't like have strong feelings against. So it's like
Do you
I can pull for the Commanders in games. It's not like he became a cowboy or something.
do you think the Niners were doing him a little bit of a solid sending him there? Because that seems like a desirable destination for receivers right now.
I mean, that might have
I
just
do.
been the best offer though, but I don't
It could
know.
have been the best offer, yeah.
John Lynch did say that he was going to honor Deebo's trade, and they wanted to find a good situation for him. So
Sounds like a good situation to me.
yeah, I'd say that's about as good as Deebo could have hoped for, which is so crazy to say because the Commanders, formerly the Washington Redskins and the football team, they've been awful for like 2 decades. Like nobody wants to play there, nobody wants to coach there, no one wants to work there.
Well,
But just
Dan
new
Snyder's
ownership,
gone. Yeah,
new quarterback, and all of a sudden it's like, dude, let's go to the Commanders.
I was gonna say because yeah, Kyle has like beef, but the guy you had beef with is gone now,
yeah,
right? So
I
no
think,
more beef.
yeah,
That
yeah.
beef is gone, yeah.
You know, the other thing though, being the historian of the pod here, um, I do feel like the Commanders are ripe for a step back next year because
Really?
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it happens a lot when a rookie quarterback comes in and takes the league by storm, and then second year is a bit of a slump. I mean, we just saw it, and I say a bit of a slump, it's all relative, but we just saw it with CJ Stroud. You know, like he was supposed to be the second coming, and he's still a good quarterback, but he didn't like take over the league like people were expecting him to after his rookie year, and the team didn't have near the success either because I think you get tape on these guys, you figure some things out, and that's something I was talking about too with Ryan as you came on earlier, Chasen, that I think that's also what's happened to Deebo is I
Mm.
think teams just know how to defend him now. I think back when he was, dominating, it was because it was something new. The wide back had never really been used before, and it was kind of some gadget plays and, just a whole different animal. And now people know what to do. I mean, because after 2021, remember how many people were talking about wanting to find their version of Deebo Samuel, and like that was a thing, and people have been,
People still do that.
yeah, they're still
Yeah.
talking about it. And it's like, what receiver can we get to also take carries? And how many times do you see receivers get, rushing attempts now across the league? And so it's like, okay, well, now it's spread. It's a copycat league. Everybody, figures out how to defend it, and there's going to have to be the next new thing. So, anyways, I just feel like it's sort of a, a bad combination there. Like if you're expecting this guy to be your savior that people have already figured out and might be a step slower now, and oh by the way, you've got this, phenom who I think he's really good. I think he's going to continue to be a good quarterback, but I just wouldn't be surprised if there's a step back in the second year because wasn't it the first year for the coach too?
Who is their head coach? I
Yeah,
can't remember.
Dan Quinn. That
Isn't
was
it
his
Dan
first year.
Quinn? Yeah.
Ooh, Dan Quinn's good though.
Sure, he is. I know he is, but I mean, I feel like, the first year that Brian Daboll was the coach in New York, they went to the playoffs. And where did these guys come from? Look at these Giants. They're frisky. They're super competitive. And then, you get that first year bump kind of out of the way. And I don't know. I'm just saying, following trends, it's not a guarantee, but following trends that I've seen over time, I wouldn't be surprised if the Commanders take a step back. Now watch, they're going to go like 15-2 and win the NFC East and whatever. But
No, that team was hella old, and I know they have a young quarterback, so people think they're like this young team. They're not. Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, their D line is old. They're Terry McLaurin's 29, Devo's 29. Like their team is old. Austin Eckler, and they really overperformed last year because Jaden is so freaking good. So yeah, but taking a step back for them could be losing in the wild card round of their division round. Still a good year, but they're not getting to the conference championship game again.
Well, also Kingsbury, that's like his reputation. Like he comes on, has an explosion, and can't sustain it.
like a
So that's
rocket,
kind
he
of
burns out, right? He fires.
Yeah, hopefully
yeah,
Dan can get a little more fuel in that rocket and keep it going.
yeah. Dan is a good head coach, I think.
All right, so let me ask you this before we watch some highlights of Deebo of his
Ooh,
2021 season.
ooh yeah.
Is there a game or even a specific play that you're just like is burned into your memory? Like, I will never forget that Deebo Samuel game or that play where you're just like, whoa.
There's more than
Oh,
one for
Yeah,
me.
there's several that come to mind.
yeah.
And and some of it is a game, some of it is beyond a game. Like when I think of Debo, I think he's going to kill the Rams every time. Like
Yes, yes.
I think Debo is the Ram killer, and I love that he had so many games against them. Of course, there's
Especially after Aaron Donald dissed him.
yeah, yeah, I love that. Of course, there's that famous moment in the playoffs against the Cowboys, right? We all know about that one, and that is like a quintessential Debo moment. Um, I remember the Eagles game in 2023.
Yeah. That
And
game
Mm,
felt personal.
right. So that like if I had to pick one, that's probably the one for me because he seemed like just completely on a mission. Like I am I am a man on a mission that I am not going to allow us to lose this game. And these guys, these Eagles, can't touch me today. And it was awesome to see. But my one Deebo moment that I think about was actually when he was on the sidelines crying after they lost the NFC Championship game. And the reason I think about that is because I felt like I could just see how badly he wanted it. And it made me love him more. Like, it was like, I know that this guy gave every ounce of everything that he had to try to get this team as far as they could. And you could tell that he truly believed they were going to get there. And so when it like came like, tumbling down on him, you could just see that passion. And like that moment for me is like, I had a lot of respect for Deebo. I don't know. I mean, I still do, but like that like sealed it for me. So I said lots of things. Sorry. Hopefully I didn't take them all.
No, and they played the Rams played the Bengals in that Super Bowl, and the Niners had beaten the Bengals earlier that year. So
Yep.
it's interesting too because that Niner team, like, you could almost make the argument they didn't deserve to make the playoffs. They had to squeak in at the end, and it feels like Deebo just willed that entire team to the playoffs and then through the playoffs. In fact, speaking of that playoffs, one of my favorite memories is a specific play in that frozen Green Bay Packer game, 3rd and 7, late in the game. The Niners have the lead and they're trying to like ice the game, and Kyle just calls
Yes.
like a traditional like outside zone run and just gives the ball to Deebo, and he
Yes.
gains 9 yards, and he's just barreling through D linemen and linebackers and DBs, and
Yes.
he gets that first down, and he comes up limping, and he's like jumping and he's limping and he's in pain, and he has to like hop off the field because he's injured. And I was just like, dude, like this guy is unreal. Because it wasn't like some reverse or jet sweep. Like I was like, no, we're just gonna run the ball on 3rd and 7, and I'm just gonna give it to Deebo, and he's just gonna get it. No misdirection, no tricks, just go get it, and he did.
That was awesome. I remember that. I'm pretty sure that's the play. I remember like post game, I think Debo's getting interviewed and he was saying like, yeah, Jimmy was telling me to remember like not to go out of bounds. And he was like, man, I don't go out of bounds. And I,
Yeah,
I thought
I
that
thought
was
that play was
funny.
incredible. Another play that stands out to me is you mentioned earlier, Stephen, the 80-yard screen against the Bears,
That
because
was sick.
um that that game was going poorly. The Niners were
Yep.
losing, and there was talk that and it kind of came out later that Kyle was thinking about going to Lance after halftime of that game because they just drafted Trey, and they were like, dude, if this season's just going to go down the drain, we might as well just play the kid. And 3rd and 10, and they just throw a little bubble screen to Deebo, like they just threw it out to the sideline, let's see what he can do. And he just goes 80 freaking yards, and he ended up getting tackled on the 1 and didn't score, but they ended up scoring on that drive, going in halftime with a lead and won the game. And then the season was like essentially saved there because it sounded like the Niners were about to fold. And Deebo, you ask a lot of Niner fans about that game, that play, they'll tell you Deebo saved this season with that play.
Yep. I remember it well. Yeah, I agree.
And then that Eagles game that you mentioned was just insane. Deebo had built that game up, talking all sorts of shit, and put so much pressure on himself, and then answered the bell as well as anybody could have ever hoped, and destroyed the Eagles. And the highlight that we're going to watch is from the 2021 season, just as highlights of that season. So we won't get to see that game, unfortunately, but my goodness, what a game that was.
My one moment I was going to say, well, when I think of Debo, same as Steven, I think of the Ram killer. I think of him making Jalen Ramsey his child, his biological child. And I was just thinking of, I actually pulled it up in the background, just the 57-yard catch and run. What year was this in? Was it 2 years ago against the Rams where Jalen Ramsey had Jimmy threw a bad pass in the corner and tried to jump
Deebo
it,
had
but
to go up and get it. It almost
yes,
looked like it was an
snatched it.
interception, and Deebo snagged it.
Snagged it and then just weaved through traffic, and Jalen Ramsey had like an open field tackle attempt and just didn't want any part of Deebo. And then Aiyuk had the sandwich block at the end going into the end zone. That's like peak old 49ers offense is Aiyuk's hustling, throwing. You see Kittle with a pancake block as
Jawan
well.
had a good block on that play. Even
Yeah,
Juice even had a good block on that play. That offense was in unison.
Yep.
Yeah, that moment when Deebo cuts back across the field and there's just him and Ramsey wide open field, like it's just mano-y-mano. And it's just Ramsey's just kind of like, I'll try to grab his shoe or something. And Deebo shakes him off like it's me out there trying to tackle him.
It was like it didn't even matter that he was. It was like, oh, speed bump, and just keep going.
And the call is
Ramsey
great
never
too.
was the same.
Yeah, he might have broke mentally after that.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, trade me to the other side of the country. I can't deal with this guy anymore. Joe Buck on that call too. He's like one-on-one with Ramsey. Can't bring him down. And Deebo just ran right through him. And I'm glad Chasen mentioned Aiyuk on that play because I don't feel like Aiyuk gets enough love. Because Deebo does have one linebacker that he's going to meet at the pylon.
He would have scored, but yeah.
He definitely would have scored. But Aiyuk, who's just kind of jogging down the field, just kind of like not loafing, but he knows what he's doing. He's putting himself in position. And as the linebacker comes screaming across the field, Aiyuk just shoves him right on his inside shoulder and spins him and turns him around, and he just ate shit and went down. It was a perfect just leverage. Like, I understand physics, and you are so out of position. I'm just gonna tip you, and you're gonna fall over. And it was an excellent block. So that was a good call by you. All right, let's watch some of these highlights, and we'll reminisce a little bit, and we'll talk through his 2021 season.
I'm gonna regret trading him after watching these. Man, he was so good in his heyday.
Well, just remember, it's not 2022 anymore, so you don't have to feel like you regret trading him because this isn't the Deebo that just got traded.
I know. I'm trying not to be negative toward Commanders fans on like social media and stuff, but they're commenting like, "Oh, this guy with Terry, it's gonna be unstoppable," and I just want to tell them like, when you guys watch these highlights, just know that number 19, you're not getting number 19.
You get number 1.
You're not getting 19 problems. You're getting number 1. Tyshun Samuel Sr., not Deebo Samuel. Sorry.
He looks thin here. Like, even his arms, he looks trim.
This play, he lined up on the wrong side of the field on this play. I don't know if you guys knew that. He was supposed to be on the side closest to us, and he lined up wrong. And I think Jimmy recognized it right before he snapped it and was like, it's too late. I'm just going to snap it. And it worked out.
Yeah.
That was like a Jimmy Garoppolo special, that last play. Like, let me just get it out quick, throw it a slant over the middle, and let my guy go do the work.
Slants, screen passes, his money. Nice. Wow, the Seahawks had a 21-7 lead on them.
Trey Lance was in.
Hey.
Oh, yeah. Here comes that wide open touchdown.
Yeah.
We lost this game, I think.
Yeah, we lost this game. Trey shattered his ankle.
But look at the long touchdowns already that we've seen just in the first couple of weeks of this season.
Deebo, get off me. Not enough dudes. Not enough dudes. Gotta bring more. Oh, that's what was awesome is when he was gearing up, he wasn't like he was going to get a couple more yards at least.
Well, yeah, that's
especially near the goal line.
Yeah, and that's also how you knew he was off this year. It's because every time a DB, he would catch the ball and the first guy there would just bring him down. It was like, dude, who the hell, what did I watch? How did that happen? By the way, I totally misspoke. Trey did not shatter his ankle in that game.
Yeah, I was going to say that you're thinking of the next year.
Wow.
The next year, yeah, because they played the Bears and then the Seahawks.
Oh, I hope Trent Williams is back to his normal self. That block he just had was sick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he had some amazing blocks this season. I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was highlight reels going around of Trent just...
Oh, that was
the only
not a good decision on the throw.
Ever had a highlight reel.
Yeah, and a really, really good one.
I was actually a Packer. Oh man, this game is depressing.
Oh, is this the sloppy rain game?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that
Carson Wentz just undefeated against the Niners,
floater.
no matter what team he plays for.
Ryan, have you heard about that new tackle everyone's talking about? Because he had like the
Yeah,
freakish. You have?
Armand Membu from Missouri.
Yeah. Are you all in on him or what?
Yeah, I like him a lot. He's definitely a possibility at 11. So I was just gonna say I was thinking about doing like some more player profiles tonight, but I didn't really know how much time we'd have or which even players to highlight. So I was like looking at the tackles, the top 3 or 4 tackles, including him. And then I went on YouTube and I was watching some of their highlights, and I was like, "Are we gonna watch tackle highlights? I don't know
That's
if
right
we
up
are."
my alley, baby. Sign me up.
I started watching Will Campbell highlights. I was like, I don't really know if I actually want to do this. Here's that screenplay.
Oh,
Third and
man.
20, man.
Third and
Oh,
20, yeah, not
man.
even 3rd and 10. So that's
Who's
just
number
like
6?
let's see
Sanu.
what can happen here.
Snu. Snu looks big out there.
He is a pretty big guy. He's probably 6'4".
So you know who I can't
Wow.
remember, and I'm
Not
like
a touchdown, unfortunately.
embarrassed to admit it, but I've seen number 23 a couple times. I don't remember who the heck that was.
CMC.
Is that Hasty?
No. It
Is
might
it
be
Hasty?
Hasty.
I think it's Hasty.
You got long hair.
Yeah, long hair.
Yeah,
Look at
that's
that
probably
pocket
Jermichael
movement.
Hasty.
Jimmy Guap shuffling the feet.
Look like Tom
Well-
Brady.
Jimmy always played well against the Bears, didn't he?
Yeah, I guess he was from Chicago.
Get him off. Get him off. I don't like seeing
Yeah.
that score line, though.
I know. Well, it's like Ryan said, they may not have deserved to make the playoffs that year. They had to get hot at the end. I mean, there was a lot of bad scores
Oh, yeah.
in this one.
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorite plays of Jimmy G's career, I'm sure we'll see it at the end of this highlight reel because it was in the second game against the Rams where they had to win to get in. And he stepped up in the pocket and threw like a freaking rocket across the field to Deebo. And it ended up being a really long play to set up a game-winning field goal, I think. And he had Jalen Ramsey parallel to the earth, stretched out,
Look at
trying to
that
deflect
Aiyuk.
it, and it was just out of range.
Excellent Aiyuk block there.
I remember this game. Like, this game made me feel like this game gave me hope. I remember that season. I was like, they can actually do it.
This was what was that stupid Hall of Fame tackle's name for the Rams?
Oh,
Why am I drawing a blank?
Whitworth.
No,
Whitworth.
the defensive. Sorry, he's like
Oh,
Aaron Donald?
Aaron
Aaron
Donald?
Donald. Yeah, that was the Aaron Donald game. That
Was
was
it?
the game when
Oh,
he was
was
like,
it?
"Who? Who's
I
Deebo?
thought-
I don't know who that is."
I thought he did that back in like 2020 or 2019 even. But okay.
No, I think it was that game.
Ryan, about that tackle I was talking about, what's kind of interesting to me is that he played right tackle, which is
Hmm.
what we need.
Yeah, definitely.
Doesn't even have to switch sides.
Man, Deebo does look thinner, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he does. And faster. A
Looks
lot
like
faster.
he's 215 pounds.
And still tough as nails.
Yeah, you notice a
Super
lot of these
tough.
times he doesn't get tackled. They have to just shove him out of bounds because they can't get him to the ground.
He
See-
was like very fast. Like very fast.
This is the second half of the season when they started, like, you see all his rushing touchdowns in the second half. It's like they
Yeah.
pivoted midway through the year.
Yeah, I mean, he had well over 1,000 receiving yards, and all of a sudden they were like, wait, he's pretty good at running back, too. That play and the touchdown run against the Vikings, I remember both those plays like, oh, nice little gain here. Oh, wait, he's still going. Holy crap, he scored? I feel like he did that all the time. Like, I don't
Yep.
expect him to score, and he does.
I think we went to this game, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Or was that a
Atlanta?
different season?
Oh,
think that's
no,
the
I
one.
think you're right. This is the yeah, we saw the
He
Falcons.
hit him. He
This is
hit
when
the
it
dude.
popped the guy's
face.
mouthpiece.
Yeah. Mouthpiece game.
The mouthpiece game, yeah. Yeah, we were definitely at that game.
Oh, man. I'm still bummed that they lost this game.
Yeah,
I can't remember this game. Oh, he fumbled. Get
I
it,
do
George.
remember this game. This is Thursday Night Football. A.J. Brown,
Yeah,
beat the Niners by himself.
That's pretty much right. Yep.
Go, Jimmy, go.
And remember, Jimmy missed a wide open use check down the field, which would have been a touchdown, probably.
He
It
did
was
that
like one of
lot.
those leak out plays.
Look at the nimble Jimmy Garoppolo. I feel like we're watching a Jimmy G highlight tape. Running for his life. Look at his face.
I think that was a 4th down play.
It's 4th and 1. Yeah, you had to make something happen. Oh,
My goodness.
Does he go?
No.
Oh, that's a sick play.
That
looked
hurt.
like the Rams play.
I remember he fell on the ball and knocked the wind out of himself. Yeah, man. Deebo catches the ball in stride over the middle. It's going big.
Oh, I remember this pass from Lance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People were stoked after this one.
Yeah, we got the next Patrick Mahomes at this point.
Was that Lance's first start?
No, I think he started earlier this season when Jimmy was hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, that is Jermichael Hasty, by the way, 23. I just saw him.
Crazy.
See ya.
I felt like Jermichael Hasty was a Niner like 12 years ago. I didn't realize it was that recent.
Yeah. He might still be in the league. Last I saw, I think it was a Patriot.
Who am I thinking of? Who was the running back that was the smaller back?
LaMichael James.
Oh.
No, not LaMichael James. Oh.
I remember
touchdown
that.
throw, Deebo.
The bobble.
Is this playoffs?
No, this is probably week 17.
To go to the playoffs.
Yeah.
There was a couple seasons where Frank Gore had a backup running back that was a smaller guy, but he was pretty good and pretty tough. I can't remember who it was right now.
Hopefully if he was good, it was not LaMichael James.
No, it wasn't LaMichael James.
This might be the play that I was talking about. Jimmy, nope, definitely not. Just a screen. The play was definitely in this game. Jimmy threw a seed to Deebo right by Ramsey.
Oh, that was Alex Mack up front laying a nice block. He used to have some fun celebrations. Right. Oh, yeah.
I love that play. I think Jimmy.
Oh, my God.
Jimmy did a great job on that play, kind of stepping up and firing a dot.
Sick.
That was a fun game.
Jimmy, 0 touchdowns.
I even want to watch it again. It was so good. Like stepping up. Boom.
Swing. That was all Ramsey the heat he had right there. He gave it everything.
Every inch he could, and he still couldn't get there. It was perfect. Now we're in the playoffs.
Ooh. Wait, we went to this game, no?
No. This was in Dallas.
So is that Micah's first year? Is he a rookie right here? I see number 11 there.
Yeah, I think so.
I think he would have had to have been. Oh, that's the play. That
was the give me the ball.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cut back. Oh, man.
Yeah, Dak had just thrown a pick.
Sorry,
and he
Dak.
immediately scored.
To Jimmy Ward, right?
Might have been Lenore.
Oh, really?
No, I don't think Lenore was on the team yet.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Dak definitely threw a pick to Lenore. Maybe that was at the game that we went to?
The game we went to, he threw a pick to Lenore, yes.
Okay. Yeah, because Brock started that one.
Dak throws a lot of picks. It's hard to keep track.
It is hard to keep track.
Especially in the playoffs.
My
wow,
goodness.
Look at the effort. Yeah, that was my Deebo Samuel right there. Gosh. Loved him. I loved him. Wanted his jersey real bad.
The Niner running back, I think, just came to me. Kendall Hunter is who I was thinking
I remember Kendall. He was kind of tough, scrappy.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
All right, let's transition a little bit to the other prominent wide receiver on the 49ers,
Ooh.
Brandon Aiyuk. There was rumors that he's available, that teams are sniffing around, calling and asking about Brandon. Lynch met with the media and he was directly asked about it. And his answer was basically, well, we do need to get cheaper and younger, and we do need to, we've been spending a lot of money. He highlighted that the Niners have been one of the most cash spending teams in the league, and they need to kind of restructure and pull in the reins a little bit. Never denied the Aiyuk rumors. And then Rappaport, like a couple days later, basically confirmed, yes, the 49ers are shopping Brandon Aiyuk. So, if they trade him, there would be a massive cap hit, like somewhere around $40 million.
Wow.
But he would be off the books the following year, like Deebo. So, what's your take? Do you think it's possible that Aiyuk is next? What would a team have to give you for you to be okay with making that move?
Well, with this whole new ruthless 49ers, I do think it's possible.
I do too.
And I'm mixed on if I want it to happen because I still think Ayuk has some good football left in him. He has a humongous contract, and you can't make this trade unless you have a plan in place. You can't roll out Jawan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, and Jacob Cowing as your starting wide receivers. So whether that's T. Higgins, whether that's Devontae
T. Higgins
Adams.
just got franchise tagged.
Oh, God. Okay. So it's just like, what's your plan if that's what you're going to do? We going to take another receiver at pick 11? Like, what are we going to do? So I don't know. I have mixed feelings. What do you think, Steven?
I think it's the wrong time. You would be trading him for really low value. I mean, there's going to be huge question marks about him coming back from his injury. Nobody knows if he's going to be the same player, so you're not going to get the same return. If you are going to trade him, you need to rehabilitate his value before you do that. Unless the only circumstance where it makes sense to get rid of him now is if you truly believe that he's just done, that old version of BA's never coming back, and like his knee was worse than they expected, and whatever. I don't know how they can know that, but maybe there is a way to project that. I don't think it's going to happen. And you, Ryan, you said that Rappaport confirmed that they're shopping Aiyuk. I didn't hear that they're shopping him. I heard that they're listening. But I feel like there's a
tomato.
Well, no, I feel like there's a huge difference between if somebody calls you and you listen to offers versus actively shopping. You're out there like, hey, we're going to make BA available. What would you give us?
Yeah,
and if
poorly worded on my part.
If that's happening, then that's shopping. I can't imagine that that's happening. I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen, even with the new ruthless Niners, whatever. Just because I don't think it makes sense for it to happen right now. And honestly, why wouldn't you hang on to him at least for one more year? See if the old Brandon Aiyuk comes back. Maybe that makes you feel better about continuing to pay him. Maybe that's when you decide to get out. Like, hey, look, he's back. He's better. Give us a second for this guy, or a third, or whatever. But if they traded him now, to answer your other question, I mean, I feel like best case scenario they would get a third, and I don't even think they would get that.
Yeah. If I'm putting myself in the 49ers shoes, if they are shopping him, and if they do trade him, I think you're right, Steven. It's because they don't think 1,300 yard, 8 touchdown Brandon Aiyuk is ever coming back. And that would obviously be a gamble, but keeping him would also be a gamble because that player might not be back. So when you look at last season, he had a slow start because he missed all of training camp, right? Because of the negotiations and stuff. So he gets off to a slow start. It seems like maybe he's starting to come around, and then he shreds his knee. And he shreds his knee bad. ACL, MCL, meniscus. I did a little Google research the other day. I looked up players that had torn ACL and MCL, and I found a handful of players that have done it, like Rob Gronkowski was one that I remember. And then I say Google, I was actually on Chat GPT. And then I asked, like, how many of these players returned to form post-injury? And it said roughly 43% of these players actually returned to prior production. So if you're the Niners, you're thinking, okay, this guy's going to miss all or most of training camp again because of the injury, and they're going to be taking it slow because the Niners like to take things slow because they've rushed in the past and it's cost them. So we know they're going to take it slow. He's not going to be practicing much. At best, he's going to be ready for week 1, but he's not going to have a training camp, so he's going to be working up to speed again. It's probably more likely I think the Niners have a week 9 bye. We could not see him till after the bye. So he's either going to, at best, have a down year because he missed training camp, or at worst, he might only play a handful of games next year. And in those games, he's definitely not going to look good. So now you're projecting to the following year. Okay, well, assuming he doesn't have setbacks, no more injuries, maybe he can get back to the old Brandon Aiyuk. But at that point, now he's 28 and he doesn't have the same style of play as Deebo, so the wear and tear might not be there. But at 28, are the Niners like, maybe he can? I can just see from their perspective that it's a gamble that he might not ever be the same player again. And if he does, he's going to have to regain that form in his late 20s. And they could just be betting against that and think, you know what? Even though we're selling at an all-time low right now, let's just sell and move on with it.
It's just a bummer when you think like the package that they could have gotten if they had capitalized. I mean, hindsight's 2020 because not just, not too long ago we were looking at him like, oh, he's entering the prime of his career. He's going to sustain this. And it looked like
established himself as a top 10 wide receiver.
Yeah, and he's an excellent blocker, does the dirty work, and now he's damaged goods. And so it's tough. I don't know. I think it depends on like what they'd be able to get back for him and what their plan is at wide receiver for me to determine like if I like the move or not. Because I just don't know what we're gonna do at receiver at this point.
So I don't think he's damaged goods. He could be, but I don't think anybody can make that determination right now because, like you said,
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised that number is as big as it is, Ryan, 43%. That gives me even more hope. I don't think that he relies on the physicality, like you said, the point you made about Deebo. The part that does concern me a little bit is he's an excellent route runner, and maybe that can affect his route running.
Yeah.
Because he can create separation. Like, I think better than any Niners receiver that we've had in recent years, he will separate. And I'm not talking about just like run by a guy because he's fast. I'm talking about with his route running ability, his moves, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I do love that he's a good blocker. And so I also don't think that he's like going to miss half the season unless he has a setback. I think that if he's ready to go week 1, I think they're going to roll him out. I don't think they're going to say, now go play every offensive snap and go be the featured part of our offense. I think they will gradually work him back in that way. And what I think is a more likely scenario is maybe they have him start on the injured reserve designated to return where he misses like 4 games, or something like that, or maybe 6 games. But I think he's going to be back in week 1, and I think they're going to have him going. I don't expect him to come out and have, huge games. I think it's going to be a down year, even if he plays in every game, if you're expecting what you saw last time you saw a full season of Aiyuk. But I wouldn't be surprised, like you guys were talking about the Deebo numbers earlier. If he gets around 1,000 yards next season, I wouldn't. I mean, it might not be as pretty or as efficient as it was before, but I could see that. And when I say around 1,000, maybe he ends up like around 900 or in the 900s or something like that. But I'm not convinced that it's over for Brandon Aiyuk.
I'm not either. I don't want to count him out. I like Brandon Aiyuk. I'm an Aiyuk fan, even if last offseason annoyed me. It was like all of a sudden out of nowhere, this guy who's like humble, do everything blocker, was just like, I'm a diva now. Like just in one offseason was like, he just like went full diva. That was unfortunate. I
feel like his best buddy might have influenced him or something.
Maybe. So I don't know if I'm as optimistic as you are, Steven, on his return. To me, and maybe even if he's like physically there, I just feel like the Niners are gonna really slow play it. So I'm not expecting a week 1 maybe month 2 of the season, which is with the week 9 bye. That's kind of where I've earmarked to that spot. Like that's maybe post bye he'll come back. Kind of like a. Remember they were teasing us about McCaffrey and Dre Greenlaw. Like after the bye they'll be back. That's where I think that could go. But if a team called right now and offered a 2nd-round pick, I'd say, okay, bye. But no one's gonna offer that. So I think it'd probably be like a 4th or a 5th. I think teams are sniffing around because they know the Niners aren't happy with his contract. They know he's a depreciated asset, and they want to try and steal him. And so they're going to call and say, "Hey, if we send you a 6th or a 5th, could we get him?" And the Niners would probably like, "Hell no, give us a 2 and a 3 or something." And it's like, okay. So I don't think there's a deal to be had here. My prediction is he's not getting traded this offseason.
I also think he's not going to get traded. I think there's a chance, but I don't think he'll get traded. And if they trade him for like a Deebo package, they get a 5th, even a 4th, like I'll be pissed. Like
I will too.
What if they end up trading him for another receiver that is like
that's
a
interesting.
really good receiver that
T. Higgins.
maybe is not totally happy in their situation as well. And like I mean, I don't know that this is even possible because of the price tag attached to Brandon Aiyuk, but like maybe they give up a good draft pick and Brandon Aiyuk to go get like a really good receiver.
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson?
Hmm.
I don't know that I'm convinced that Garrett Wilson's a really good receiver.
I think I am.
He's good. It seems like he's a little small and
He's
a
a
little
jet.
bit of a diva. I don't know if he'd be much of a blocker.
Yeah. I was more thinking about like, a household name. Like that's what I feel like it would take. I'm not saying like Justin Jefferson, he's untouchable, but like I don't know. I don't even know a good example. Well, okay,
T. Higgins.
I'll throw one out that I don't think is realistic, but just because there's been whispers of like him not being happy, AJ Brown. So
Wow.
like something like that. If you could get him or if there's an equivalent, I don't know, for Brandon Aiyuk and a 2nd, would you do it?
Dude, if you win the Super Bowl and you're still like, I'm pissed. It's like, dude, I don't. What is there to do then?
Well, maybe Jalen Hurts really sucks, Ryan. I mean, we don't have to deal with him day in and day out, and the rest of the team carried him there. I don't know, but
Maybe
He
there's
wasn't
something
happy in
weird about AJ
Tennessee
Brown.
either.
Huh?
He wasn't happy in Tennessee either. Everywhere
yeah,
he goes, he wants
I
out.
mean, don't get hung up on AJ Brown. It's just a guy that I could think of that was like, not happy.
Well, there's a big name
I think you're sleeping on Garrett Wilson.
I'm not
Speaking
saying
of Garrett Wilson.
Go ahead, Chase. Yeah.
Speaking of Garrett Wilson, his teammate is reportedly available for a trade.
Devontae, yeah. No, they're going to cut him. See, if they did trade Aiyuk, that could be, you could go sign Devontae as like a
stopgap,
temporary like replacement. Because even if they draft a guy in the 1st round, even if they drafted a guy at pick 11, Kyle does not trust rookie receivers. Like Deebo has talked about it. Aiyuk has talked about it. Aiyuk, his rookie year, was a 1st-round receiver. He only played because they had injuries and he had to play. Deebo admitted himself he struggled to get on the field his rookie year because there was so much of the playbook to learn and it was difficult for him. So if the Niners are going to really try and compete and win this year, then they'd have to go sign someone in free agency like Devontae. Someone who can come in and contribute right away.
And maybe they will. I mean, maybe we've talked about like Darius Slayton before. Maybe they go out and get both those guys, and maybe that's why they would be willing to move on from Aiyuk. I mean, I don't know.
That actually reminds me.
Oh, okay.
I saw this tweet earlier. According to Jeremy Fowler, he had some free agency projections and 3 players that we've talked about here.
Oh man!
Shut up, Jeremy Fowler! Quit giving people ideas.
A lot of money.
Idiot. Why is he talking about Jamie Sherwood? He knows only I know about him.
Yeah. Everyone else is supposed to have a block on him, but hey, $10 million per year. That's that's not crazy for a good linebacker if he is in fact a good linebacker. But if
Yeah, I mean that's
10, 10,
Dre was getting like 8 or 9.
10 million a year might get you Bolton from the Chiefs. Would you take
Yeah,
him
Yeah,
over Sherwood or not?
I would.
maybe. I'd have to. I don't really know much about him. Maybe though. I mean, he's a good player on a championship team, so
A new cornerback, free agent, multiple Pro Bowler, and I think all pro.
no, I don't want him.
I don't want him either.
Who?
But do you know? Uh, Darius
Slay.
Slay has been released by the Philadelphia Eagles. 34-year-old Darius Slay.
Yeah.
I
But
thought he looked really good in the Super Bowl. Honestly, I thought he played well.
He's going to go
But
to the
no, don't want him.
Commanders.
he
With
probably
Marshawn
will.
Lattimore, yeah, that team's just getting so old.
Did you guys see there was some post, I think, on X where they were showing that commercial that has like Jerry Rice, Emmett Smith, and Dan
Mhm.
Marino all in uniform? They're like, this is the Commanders lineup or something like that.
Yeah, that clip gets thrown around anytime people are referencing old whatever. But yeah, I saw that same one. It was like the 2025 Commanders with Deebo. That team's old.
What
So
would you guys think? Because I mean, I've only heard like some whispers, and I don't know that I want this next guy that I'm about to say, but any way to make a play for DK Metcalf? And what would you guys think about that?
I don't want him. I think he's super overrated and is a cancer in the locker room. I have not liked Metcalf for a while, and I watch a
Okay.
lot of Seahawks games because they're always on. And not even just like his character, because I do think he's a dirty player, but I think he legitimately is overrated. And he fumbles the ball a lot. He does dumb decisions. He fights the other team and costs like key penalties. I think he doesn't contribute a ton
Hmm.
to winning football.
He just seems like such a specimen. But
limited
is.
route tree.
yeah.
He's a freak. He's a freak. I'll take Jawan.
The second round receivers that came out in 19 between AJ Brown, Deebo Samuel, and DK Metcalf, just freak athletes. Big. I mean, Deebo's not as big as those guys, but those guys are insane athletes, physiques, the whole thing.
They're all different and they're all kind of divas in their own way.
You guys
The
you
the
guys got me
Niners do
thinking,
need a field stretcher, but I don't want DK.
you guys got me thinking that Devontae Adams is going to be a Niner, and I'm going to have to come to terms with that because I've felt for a long time like he's overrated. I don't think he's bad, but I feel like
Interesting.
Devontae Adams is a good player who gets treated like a great player.
I remember that game a few years ago. Pretty sure he was still in the Packers, where he just ate the Niners alive. And he got hit really hard, got evaluated for concussion, then came back and again dominated them to win the game. And ever since then, I've been like, dang. Like, I've had a lot of
Do you
respect
think-
for him.
Steven, do you think Devontae is a Hall of Famer?
No.
I want to look up how old he is because I wouldn't mind him coming to the
I think
Niners.
he's
I'd be very happy.
32.
That's not that old for a receiver.
You know, it's funny because like Commanders fans are like, Deebo's only 28 or 29. I'm like, no, he's like 35 in football years.
In
In
football,
football
years.
years, he's pretty old.
Kyle used him up pretty good, guys. Good luck.
I think he rang
He
that
did.
orange dry of all the juice. We'll see though.
I it's
Good luck, Deebo.
receiver is interesting because it feels like you start talking about them like I think there's so many good receivers, but we start going down the list of guys and it seems like there's a lot of flaws too.
Well, prepare for the Niners to select a receiver with the second round pick.
I thought this was like a bad draft for receivers. Like I don't want that.
I don't want it either.
If they get Luther Burden in the second round, I'd be okay with that. And there's a guy from TCU.
Yeah, I saw
He's projected to be a third rounder, Savion Williams.
his
He
highlights
looks pretty
too.
good.
Yeah, and they're talking about him being the next Deebo, right?
Yeah,
So-
the next Deebo. I don't know how many college wide receivers have come out and said like, "Oh, I want to be the next Deebo. I'm going to be the next Deebo."
Pro comp Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, and 6 years into Deebo's career, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I look around the league, I still only see one
It's
Deebo.
only one Deebo, yeah.
Can we talk about Armin Mimbo, this offensive tackle that's flying up draft boards and is my new draft crush.
Is he going to catch passes for the Niners next year? Because
No,
He's pretty fast. He might.
he is pretty fast. He's 332 pounds, and he ran a 4.91 40-yard dash.
His 40 went viral because he was like grunting and
loud.
screaming as he
I
was
saw
running.
it. Yeah, I saw it.
The noisiest. His pro comp is Jason Peters. Pretty good pro comp there.
I like him. And I've heard a lot of really good things about him. I think he has potential to be their pick at 11. And I'll say this too. I've been thinking about it. I'm coming around to Chasen's idea of like, you got to go tackle.
You got to.
And at that first pick, and then because there's so many good defensive linemen later in the draft, then you get your D lineman.
That's the only argument, I guess, that I'll accept right now in terms of why you would do that. Like, it makes sense. But you will not convince me that a more impactful player is going to be an offensive tackle than a defensive tackle. I think that plug and play stud defensive tackle is way better and gonna, like, that could put you over the top and get you the Super Bowl versus, a second round playoff exit. Whereas you could go get the just absolute stud offensive tackle and still have the second round playoff exit, in my opinion.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know, because you think about this too. Defensive tackles, even if you have a stud, plays 70% of his reps, maybe. Offensive tackle plays 100% of the offensive reps. And we've seen Purdy, when Purdy's under duress, the offense struggles. But when Purdy's clean, boy, he can kill you.
That's true. You're like that. That's a compelling argument that he's better when he's clean. But I just think that you can scheme around the good offensive tackle if you're an opposing defensive coordinator. I mean, I feel like there's ways that you're going to still disrupt Purdy. And I don't know that you can't scheme your offensive tackle to always follow their best defensive lineman.
Well, if you have Trent on the other side and say Membo, and who's a stud, then it's like put your edge rusher wherever you want, and he's running into a brick wall.
Look, and admittedly, I am not a college football guy, so I can't tell you much about this guy, but I've never heard of him until he had this amazing 40 time. Like, I don't remember anybody talking about him being up there, and it's like every year there's workout warriors that get like overdrafted and highly touted because of something that they did. Everybody's like, "Oh, we got to get this guy." It's like, yeah, if we're going to like judge whether or not we go to the Super Bowl by races of offensive linemen, then let's get him. But I don't I haven't even seen the guy play, I'm sure he's good. If he's at the combine, I'm sure he's really good. But yeah, I feel like if we haven't heard of him, there's a reason he's not like a generational prospect. We don't have Penei Sewell here.
No.
It's
Trent
crazy.
Williams is not in this draft.
I've looked at some recent mock drafts, and he is flying up there. I see him going at like number 7 now. Like, he's not even going to be there by the time the Niners pick. Of course, mock drafts don't really mean anything, but
they're going to change a bunch too between now and the draft again. But to me, I'm like, great, music to my ears. Take him at 7. Then another guy that's already like got the pedigree that we expect to be there will fall to 11.
Yeah.
Well, I will say I have heard of him before this because I have been following people that have talked about him. I've heard a lot of good things about him. I've heard people say that the workouts, he's not just like the workout warrior for the combine. Like the play on the field matches. And he was projected to be a mid first round pick in the teens. And now after the combine, it's like maybe he'll go in the top 10. So it's not like he was a second round player who's all of a sudden jumped in the top 10. He's sounds like he's just bumped up 5 to 10 picks.
I like that he's already a right tackle. Like, that he's huge, athletic, and already a right tackle. So it's not like he has to swap sides or anything like that. And he can learn the ropes from Trent Williams. Yeah, I would be happy with it. Steven, a prospect that I think you'd like is Mike Green, edge rusher from Marshall. who I see get mocked to the Niners a lot. A lot of people think he could be a great pass rusher down the road.
Well, and I don't want you guys to think that like I am so hell bent on a defensive tackle that I want them to take the best defensive tackle at 11 no matter what. If there was a run on defensive tackles between like picks 4 through 7, I wouldn't want them to like overdraft a guy at 11 just to get a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
I'm saying all things being equal, if they're the two best players available when the Niners pick at 11, one is a defensive tackle, one is an offensive tackle, I believe the defensive tackle will have a greater impact and contribute more to the success overall of the team than the offensive tackle, especially right away. Now, in the grand scheme of things, if you were getting like a franchise tackle that is like your Trent Williams replacement, then okay. If you can guarantee me that, then give me the offensive tackle, because those guys are more of a unicorn than the impact defensive tackles. But I just feel like the odds of that are not great, or else you would already be hearing about that, about that prospect right now being that slam dunk can't miss. And honestly, that guy's not going to be there at 11.
For what it's worth, my dream pick, actually 2 of my dream picks, both are equally not going to happen. They're not realistic, but Mason Graham is my number 1 and Abdul Carter is my number 2. So if that's any solace, my top 2 guys I want the Niners to get are defensive linemen.
All right.
Well, don't get your hopes up.
I know they're not. Unless we trade up, or Mason Graham's medicals, or not Mason Graham, Abdul Carter's medicals are looking crazy on that stress fracture.
And I do want him to go best player available. So it's even hard for me to say it like when we talked about that corner, Will Johnson, right? But if he's there at 11 and it's clear that he's the best player, then you got to take him. You got to take him even if he's your third corner. It depends on how the Niners have the guys rated on their big board and everything. But if he's, because I feel like you've got to mostly stay true to that. But if it's close, then you can take the guy that may be a little bit worse if it's at a bigger position of need.
All right, let's wrap this up. On our next one, do you guys want to highlight a couple more players? Like, which do you want to do? Edge rushers? Do we want to watch some tackle highlights? Because
I want you to show me Minbo now. I want to see if
big boy.
Yeah, not his 40. I saw that online.
We'll watch some highlights.
Yeah.
So we'll do a couple of tackles then, because I don't want. There's a safety that's projected to go in the top 10, 15.
Starks.
Yeah, I don't think the Niners are drafting a safety. I don't know that we have to watch him, but players at positions that we think the Niners really could draft, which offensive tackle is certainly in there.
Mm-hmm.
We'll watch those guys. So, all right, next time we'll watch a couple offensive linemen, probably just 3 or 4 minutes of each one, because I don't know if we can watch 30 or 40 minutes of offensive tackle reps.
That sounds good. And we're going to skip out on the quarterbacks, right? There's no need to watch them.
Oh, yeah.
We're not watching the quarterbacks. We're not going to watch Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter.
Okay.
Because there's just no point. And honestly, if Travis Hunter fell to 11, I would trade back. Take someone's trade haul to move back. I don't even really want him. Now, Abdul Carter's there, you go ahead and draft him.
Ooh-wee.
But Travis Hunter, I'm not sold on Travis Hunter.
Well, and maybe that's something to talk about on the next one, too, if we're going to look at some more guys. I don't want to say if they had the number 1 pick, because it seems like the right answer there is to trade back. But
Abdul Carter.
Yeah, is it Abdul Carter, slam dunk? No matter what.
For me,
I think he's the best
Abdul
player.
Carter.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then we don't need to talk about it next time. You guys already agreed.
My second would be Mason Graham. If we had the number 2 pick and Abdul Carter got picked, I'd go Mason Graham.
Yeah. I'd probably go Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward's good. Anyway, that'll be all for this episode. We'll get more into the draft, into the next one. And we didn't even talk Lynch's comments on Purdy's contract, too. We can talk about that a little more.
The ruthless 49ers.
The ruthless. It's a new era.
Right.
All right, I'll see you guys on the next one. See
Later,
ya.
guys.
All right. Peace.